Shadow Colour works directly inside your Revit project, allowing you to evaluate shadow impact, analyze sun exposure, and generate clear, color-coded study illustrations. In this tutorial, we'll go through the main study types, key features, and workflows used to create comprehensive shadow and sun analysis. To learn more or download the add-in, visit our website linked in the description below. The first step is setting up the Revit view. We only need to set up a single view for the analysis. First, I'll make sure the view is cropped and that shadows are enabled. Under Sun Settings, I also want to make sure the project location is set correctly. In this example, I have two Revit masses. One represents the proposed building, and the second represents an approved development. I also have a context model included as a linked CAD file. After setting up the view, I'll go to the Add-ins toolbar and launch Shadow Colour. On the first screen, I can see the different study types available. With Shadow Study, I can assign colors to distinguish proposed shadows from the existing context, also known as net new shadows. I can also calculate shadow areas for specific regions and surfaces. Next is sun exposure. Here, I can analyze how long outdoor spaces receive direct sunlight and calculate sunlit exposure areas. Then we have shadow coverage. This mode calculates the area of visible shadows directly from a 3D view, including complex site conditions such as slopes and topography. And finally, shadow duration. Here, I can measure how long a region remains in shadow from a specific building. Let's start by selecting Shadow Study. We'll start by linking elements from the view into Shadow Colour and assigning colors to their shadows. There are two ways to do this. I can pick elements directly from the view using Add Element, or select entire worksets using Add Workset. Using Add Element, I can select massing, groups, or linked files. I'll click Add Element, return to the view, and select the first element. The first selected element becomes the top layer. In this case, I'll start with the city context. I can rename the layer, assign a shadow color, and adjust the opacity if needed. I'll select a dark gray color. Now I'll add the remaining elements from the view. This study contains 3 layers: the city context, the approved development, and the proposed building. Next, I'll click Preview Image to see the results. We can immediately see the colored shadows and the impact of the proposed development. Each layer also includes additional controls. I can reorder layers to control which shadows appear on top, disable or delete layers, and adjust the shadow colors. I can also create outlines for the shadows and assign colors for overlapping shadows. Under Appearance, I can control how each element is displayed. As View, keeps the element appearance as defined in Revit. Receive No Shadows, removes shadows cast onto the element, and Invisible hides the element while keeping its shadows visible. If we go back to the view, we can see that the proposed building casts shadows over the park during certain hours. I want to highlight the additional shadow on the park, assign it a different color, and calculate the shadow area. To do that, I'll create a new region using the property line. I'll click Add Region in Shadow Colour and select the property line from the view. I can rename the region and assign a different color to the shadows within that area. Now, when I click Preview Image, I can see the shadow area calculations for each layer, along with the total region area. To export the shadow study images, I'll go to File, Export. Here I can export a single image using the current sun settings from the view, or batch export multiple images for a single day or multiple days. For a single day export, I'll select the date, the time range, and time interval. Next, I'll choose the image quality. I can also include additional export options, such as a superposition image with all the frames overlaid, video or GIF animations, and an area calculation report. I'll keep the export mode set to file and run the export. As you can see, all the images are generated. The file names include the date and time of each frame. In the Excel, I can review the shadow area for each region and time frame. Alternatively, I can export directly onto Revit sheets by changing the export mode to Sheet. In the settings, I can customize the layout, select a title block, and adjust the image placement. Revit will automatically create new sheets and place the exported images with their corresponding dates and times. For a multi-day export, the workflow is very similar. I'll click Add Day, select the time range and interval, and add additional dates to the export. Now that we've covered shadow studies, let's look at sun exposure. First, I'll switch to sun exposure mode. The analysis can be run in either a plan view or a 3D view. I'll set up the Revit view, make sure shadows are enabled, and ensure the view is cropped. To run the study, I'll select a date, define the time range and interval. On the time increments bar, I can move the hour markers, create new increments, delete them, and customize the colors. Next, I'll click Preview Image to see the results. To calculate the sunlit areas within a specific region, I'll click Add Region and select the property line from the view. I can rename the region, disable it, or delete it. Now I'll click Preview Image, and the area calculations will appear alongside the analysis. To export the sun exposure analysis, I'll go to Export and select Sun Exposure. The export will include the analysis image, the area calculation report, and the legend bar. Next, let's look at shadow coverage. I'll start by setting up a Revit view. Shadow coverage works in an orthographic 3D view. I'll adjust the camera to include the full shadow area I want to measure, and make sure the view is cropped and shadows are enabled. Next, I'll click Analyze View. Shadow Colour will process the model and generate the analysis. Once complete, a preview of the 3D view will be generated with a polygon. I can adjust the polygon using the control points to include the shadows I'd like to calculate. After drawing the polygon, I'll click the area calculation icon. The shadow area will be calculated and displayed in square meters and square feet, and the shadow will be color-coded. I can rename the polygon and assign a custom color. I can also create additional polygons or remove them by selecting a polygon and pressing Delete. To export the study, I'll go to File Export. Here, I can export a single image using the current sun settings from the view, or batch export multiple images for a single day. For this example, I'll export a single day. I'll select the date, time range, and time interval, then choose the image quality. I can also include a video or GIF animation. Once the export is complete, all the images will be saved, along with the animation and the area calculation report in an Excel file. Now let's look at shadow duration. First, I'll select the date, time range, and interval. On the time increments bar, I can move the hour markers, create new increments, and customize the colors. Next, I'll click Preview Image to see the results. As you can see, the analysis displays the shadow duration across the entire model visible in the view. To run the analysis for a specific building, I can click Add Element and select the building from the view. I can select Revit massing, groups, or linked files. I can rename the element. Now I'll click Preview again. As you can see, the analysis now measures the additional shadow duration, also known as net new shadows, generated by the selected building. To export the analysis, I'll go to Export and select Shadow Duration. Before we wrap up, let's take a quick look at some additional settings and tools available in Shadow Colour. Under Settings, Preferences, I have access to additional graphic controls. Here, I can override the line width, turn area calculations on or off, control the shadow intensity. I can also show all visible elements in the view, bring outlines to the top, and select topography from my model to receive shadows. For sun exposure analysis, I can also control the color opacity. Another useful feature is the masking tool. Located next to the preview window, it allows me to draw polygons that hide areas from the preview and focus the analysis on specific regions. I can invert the masking selection and draw multiple masking polygons. The masking will also be applied during export. That covers the main workflows and analysis tools available in Shadow Colour. To learn more and download the add-in, visit our website linked in the description below. Thanks for watching.